What's up, everybody? It's Chris. So, I'm sure you all heard by now, Antonio Margarito and his trainer Javier Capetillo have had their licenses revoked or suspended for a year. I'm gonna read this statement real quick that's on FightNews.com. It's better than me trying to state it in my own words, so sorry if I'm looking away from the camera for a sec, but I'm just gonna read this statement real quick. It says, former welterweight champion Antonio Margarito and his trainer Javier Capetillo had their licenses revoked today at today's California State Athletic Commission's disciplinary hearing. Capetillo testified that he accidentally put illegal pads into Margarito's hand wraps prior to his bout with Shane Mosley. Quote, "I committed a big mistake," Capetillo said, according to the LA Times. "I don't want this young man to have problems. I'm here to cover any responsibility. I take full responsibility. I committed this innocent mistake." Unquote. Earlier, CSAC Inspector Che Guevara testified that the pad inside Margarito's hand wraps was, quote, "not hard as a rock, but firm and hard," unquote. Inspector Mike Bray testified that there was a white substance smeared across the pad like a cast plaster. The pads confiscated by the commission before Margarito's fight last month with Shane Mosley are still being tested by the commission. Margarito and Capetillo are currently on suspension pending the outcome of this case. So, my bad. I think I said that their license or whatever revoked for a year. I guess it revoked until whatever the outcome of this is, what's found as the substances to be. Until then. So where do we start? Obviously, there was some sort of foul committed, which, it appeared obvious. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a, even a temporary suspension in the first place. To be honest, I don't believe Capetillo when he says it was an innocent mistake or he accidentally put illegal pads in the gloves. Come on, man. You've been training fighters for years. You don't accidentally put someone in a fighter's gloves. You don't accidentally put a pad or something on the gloves. That's not an accident, And whatever was smeared on his pads or his gauze or his hand wraps, that's no accident either, regardless of what it is. It's illegal, And, the thing is, I've stated before on here I'm a Margarito fan. Well, I was. It's hard to say at this point. I don't really know what I think, but as far as me being a fan of his, but the trainer, I don't buy it. I don't understand where this comes from. I don't know if this is the first time they've done this. It's never been anything that's been brought up before prior to any of Margarito's fights. But that's not to say that they haven't tried it before. Maybe just Nassim Richardson was more observant, as they were of the hand wraps of Trinidad back when he fought Bernard Hopkins. It's unfortunate. Margarito was coming off that big win over Cotto, had a lot of fan support. People really thought he had worked his way, fought the hard way to get to that position and came out victorious, And now that fight's going to be questioned, as is any other fights he's had. Cintron fights, Clottey fights, any of his accomplishments he's ever had are all going to be questioned because of this incident. And, that's his and his trainer's fault, Nobody else's. So you can't fault anyone for questioning any accomplishments he's had up to this point. I say it's unfortunate because Antonio Margarito honestly seemed like an honest fighter that gave you everything he had, that fought the right way, was just a hard worker, didn't have a lot of natural ability, just got by on his heart and his work ethic and his willpower. But, maybe that's not the case. People are going to have a lot of questions, especially about the Cotto fight. Not because, hand wraps are not. He took a lot of damage, he kept coming. But the damage that he was able to inflict on Cotto, Cotto's face at the end of that fight, he was just beaten, man. And we're never going to know probably whether or not they used anything in that fight, but if he did, hypothetically, that's a shame because, who knows how it affected Cotto. We won't know until we see Cotto fight Jennings how he's going to recover from that bout, but he took a lot of punishment. It could be similar to Cotto and Castillo after their first fight. They were never the same, or Meldrick Taylor was never the same after Julio Cesar Chavez, or Vargas and David Reed were never the same after fighting Trinidad. I really hope that's not the case, especially if by chance that Margarito's gloves were tampered with prior to that bout. Either way, it's a very unfortunate situation. I'm glad that Naseem Richardson was able to, point this out before the bout began. Who knows what could have happened if he would have been able to hit Mosley with quote-unquote loaded gloves, whatever you want to call it, what kind of damage he could have incurred. Mosley shouldn't look so good that night that maybe he wouldn't have got to him anyway. But a lot of people have said, fans have said, Margarito, after being exposed for the gloves, looked less confident going into the bout, like he'd been shook, mentally. That may be the case. Who knows? Like his confidence had been shook. Either way, it could have been a really tragic night had he gone into the ring with those his gloves the way they were and those pads or whatever it was in there. And I'm glad it didn't happen. It would have been a really black eye on the sport, as this will be regardless. But regardless of whatever Shane's done in the past with steroids or whatever not, no fighter deserves to be hit illegally with any kind of foreign substance. So, I'm really glad that was avoided. So credit to Naseem Richardson for keeping a keen eye on the fighters' reps. And hopefully, if nothing else, all trainers from now on will keep a better eye on fighters, their fighters' opponents getting their hand wrapped. If nothing else, a lesson can be learned from this. We're gonna have to wait and see what goes on with what this substance was exactly. But these guys should be suspended for at least a year. Capetillo, I think he should be suspended even longer. I don't know if Margarito was in on it or not. He's the fighter, but the trainer knew what he was doing. I don't care what he says. I don't buy his excuse. I don't think anybody would in their right mind that is a reasonable person. So that's pretty much it. That's my thoughts on that. Just wanted to drop a quick video on it. It's a very unfortunate situation. Fortunately, we got a lot of good fights coming up this year. Hopefully, it'll take our mind off that and get us back to why we really love this sport, for the fights and the fighters themselves and what they provide inside the ring and not the controversy outside of it. So that's it for now, guys. I'm out of here. Till next time. Bye.